He left me with nothing. Her voice trembled as she continued, I sacrificed everything, my time, my money, my future. And he threw me away like I was nothing. I couldn't let them be happy while I suffered alone. I just couldn't. Sylvia's pain was real, but it did not excuse what she had done. Her thirst for revenge had destroyed not just Joe and Celine, but also herself. She would have to live with the consequences of her actions. It was a bright and beautiful day in Calabar, Cross River State. The sun shone warmly over the town, and the air was filled with joy and laughter. People had gathered from far and near to celebrate the wedding of Joe and Celine. It was supposed to be the happiest day of their lives, a day filled with love, dancing, and celebration. But no one knew that a terrible danger was lurking in the shadows, ready to turn this joyous occasion into a heartbreaking tragedy. The wedding was grand, and everything seemed perfect. The guests enjoyed the delicious food, the lively music, and the cheerful atmosphere. Joe and Celine looked so happy, their smiles glowing as they exchanged vows in front of their families and friends. It was a moment of love and happiness, a moment that should have lasted forever. But just 30 minutes after they ate the fried rice prepared for the reception, something terrible happened. The guests noticed that Joe and Celine were looking pale and weak. At first, people thought they were just tired from the excitement of the day. But soon, their faces grew even paler, and their bodies became weak. And then, right before everyone's eyes, they both collapsed. The music stopped. The laughter turned into screams of horror. People rushed to help them, but it was too late. Joe and Celine were gone. Their bodies lay cold and lifeless in the middle of what should have been the happiest moments of their lives. The news spread quickly, and soon, the entire town was in shock. How could this happen? What had caused their sudden and tragic deaths? The authorities launched an investigation, determined to uncover the truth. As they pieced together the events of the day, it became clear that something far more sinister had taken place. The cause of death was poisoning. Someone had deliberately laced their food with a deadly substance. But who could have done such a heartless thing? Who would want to destroy the lives of two people who were so happy and in love? After days of careful investigation, the shocking truth was revealed. The person responsible for this cruel act was none other than Sylvia, Joe's ex-girlfriend. The entire town was stunned. Sylvia and Joe had been in a relationship for 6 years before he traveled abroad. But over time, their love faded and they broke up. Despite their separation, Sylvia had never truly let go of Joe. She still loved him deeply, and when she found out that he had moved on and was getting married to her best friend, Celine, her heart was shattered. Sylvia had been the one who supported Joe throughout their relationship. She had paid for his clothes, his bills, and even his flights when he traveled abroad. She had given him everything she had, sacrificing her own well-being and financial stability for his sake. She had believed that their love was real, that they would be together forever. But when Joe ended things with her, it broke her completely. And to make matters worse, he chose to marry Celine, the one person she thought she could trust the most. The pain and betrayal Sylvia felt were unbearable. She couldn't stand the thought of Joe marrying someone else, especially Celine. The bitterness and rage inside her grew stronger every day until she finally decided that she had to stop the wedding, no matter what it took. On the wedding day, Sylvia attended the reception, pretending to be happy for the couple. But deep inside, she was filled with hatred and pain. As the guests celebrated, she carefully slipped poison into the fried rice that Joe and Celine would eat. She convinced herself that this act of revenge would make her feel better, that it would ease the pain in her heart. As she watched Joe and Celine collapse before her, a twisted sense of satisfaction filled her. For a brief moment, she felt powerful, like she had finally taken control of her broken heart. But as the reality of what she had done began to sink in, guilt started eating away at her. She had taken two innocent lives. Joe and Celine were gone, and nothing could bring them back. The police arrested Sylvia, and as she sat in the cold interrogation room, she was filled with a mix of anger, sadness, and regret. She knew that what she had done was unforgivable, but deep inside, she still felt justified. With tears streaming down her face, she confessed, "I did 3 abortions for Joe. The last one almost cost me my womb. I turned down many suitors because I believed he was the one. I cared for everything, his clothes, his bills, even his flights abroad. I spent all my money on him, thinking he would love me the same way. But in the end, he left me for her. He left me with nothing." Her voice trembled as she continued, "I sacrificed everything, my time, my money, my future. And he threw me away like I was nothing. I couldn't let them be happy while I suffered alone. I just couldn't." Sylvia's pain was real, but it did not excuse what she had done. Her thirst for revenge had destroyed not just Joe and Celine, but also herself. She would have to live with the consequences of her actions for the rest of her life. The town was still in shock. The tragic story of Joe and Celine's wedding became the talk of every household. People whispered about it in the marketplace, in their homes, and on the streets. The horror of what Sylvia had done sent chills down everyone's spine. Trust among lovers became fragile, and fear spread like wildfire. Among those deeply affected were Daniel and Amaka, a couple who had been together for 3 years but were now on the verge of breaking up. Their love had once been strong, but lately, it had faded. They argued more than they laughed, and their hearts no longer felt connected. One evening, under the dim light of the moon, they sat in silence outside Amaka's house. The words of unspoken words hung between them. Amaka took a deep breath and finally spoke. "Daniel, I think we need to face the truth. We are not the same people we were when we started this relationship. It's not working anymore." Daniel sighed and nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing. Maybe it's best if we go our separate ways." A long silence followed. Amaka felt a mix of relief and sadness. She had prepared for this moment, but something about it felt unsettling. The story of Joe and Celine haunted her thoughts. The idea that love could turn into deadly revenge made her uneasy. She glanced at Daniel and asked, "You don't feel angry, do you?" Daniel frowned. "Angry about what?" "About us breaking up, about me letting go," she said carefully. Daniel chuckled, but there was no humor in his voice. "Are you asking if I'll do something crazy like Sylvia did?" Amaka's heart pounded. "I didn't say that," she whispered. Daniel's expression darkened. "But you thought it." A sudden tension filled the air. Amaka felt fear creeping into her chest. Had she misjudged Daniel all these years? Could he be capable of something like that? Daniel stared at her for a long moment before shaking his head. "This is what the story has done to us," he said quietly. "It made us all question the people we once trusted." The following days were filled with unease. Amaka tried to convince herself that she was overthinking things. But one evening, Daniel showed up at her doorstep holding a small bag. "I brought you something," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Amaka hesitated before taking the bag. The delicious aroma of jollof rice filled the air. "I made it myself," Daniel added. "I know you've been stressed, so I thought this would make you feel better." A lump formed in Amaka's throat. Memories of Joe and Celine flashed in her mind. Was she being paranoid, or was she in danger and just didn't know it yet? Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.